This was a really awesome episode for a number of reasons, but I think for me, I identify most with the video game portion of it and love the explanation and the rules we heard.
Hunter x Hunter, episode 60, End and Beginning. Or beginning of the end, whichever way you want to look at it.
I like this already. Excuse me. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and just video game-ridden tale, at least in this arc anyway, of Hunter x Hunter. Now, in our last episode, we saw things, of course, it was really kind of a bridge episode, technically the beginning of the Greed Island story arc, but really it was just a lot of kind of wrapping things up and sort of catching up with characters and things of that nature. But ultimately, at the end, it was Gon and Killua just obviously practicing and trying to train and become more powerful, so they could certainly do well at the tryouts to get into the Greed Island game to actually play for this. For the Batera, Mr. Batera, the billionaire who's buying up all the copies of it. So that's how things left off, and things pick up right over there. It's actually pretty cool. I enjoyed the whole episode start to finish, and I'm really just hyped for the arc now itself. Maybe because I like the idea of going into a video game, a sort of Tron-like deal. And I know there's a lot of other things out there like No Game, No Life, there's Sword Art Online, these other type of anime. But for me, being kind of old and old school, Tron back in the 80s, and then of course Tron Evolution or Revolution that came out, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, are the games that come to mind, or movies that come to mind about you going into a game. So we wind up actually getting a fairly, for me it was a fairly heartfelt send-off by Kurapika. He's going to go with Melody and of course continue working for the Nostrad family, and Leorio goes to see them off and says, why didn't you want to tell Gon and Killua, and he says, don't worry, they just need to focus on their training and this and that, tell them I said goodbye, and that I didn't quite agree with, everybody kind of puts their life on the line for Kurapika, who's a hothead a lot of times. And then he's going to go and just take off without saying goodbye because he wants to, wants them to focus on their training. That's kind of a given anyway. So anyway, Leorio, though, I think the nice thing about this was that Melody goes and as Kurapika goes and walks away, Leorio kind of asks, Melody, could you watch over him? He can be hot-headed at times, this and that, and he seems to have opened up to you. And Melody, I thought this was very nice, said that you have a nice heartbeat, a nice, kind, steady heartbeat. You'd be great as a teacher or a doctor. We know, obviously, Leorio wants to become a doctor. And I just thought that was kind of a neat little thing there. So, anyway, Gon and Killua, though, they were not too happy, especially Gon, about Kurapika just going and taking off without saying goodbye. But it is what it is. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we wind up seeing some more auctioning going on this is the last day of the auctioning, at least for the Greed Island copies, and the last couple wind up going to, of course, this Mr. Batera, and he pays a ton of money for these things. The last one went for like 60.2 billion Jenny, and I think the second to last one was like in the 30s, 38, 39. What does it say? Killua's little fat shit brother Milike is all pissed off because he doesn't get a copy, and he winds up eating himself into almost a food coma. And I don't know if there's any significance to that. I think he's just kind of an unlikable character, and I don't really like him. He's kind of a douche. But anyway, what winds up happening is, of course, we know that that they're going to be holding the tryouts, and for potential Greed Island players, right? So that's what the main focus of this is. A couple hundred people show up in this auditorium, and that Mr. Segura, I think his name is. He winds up, coming out and basically saying, hey, listen, we're going to drop this like shade type thing over, this protective shade, and you're going to come get in line, whatever you do, come back one by one, and show me what you got. You're going to show you have to have Nen, obviously. You have to possess that, and you're going to show me your abilities, what you have, and then we're going to pick 32 players from there, right? So a bunch of people jump up and get in line, right? And there's other people that just kind of hang around on the side, like waiting for their chance. And there's a bunch of people that just sit still, And Gon and Killua are two of them. And I liked the whole, the mind games part of this, because really everything is a test when it comes to things like this. Almost like in the Hunter exam, they're looking for, for players that are not only powerful, but I think that are level-headed, cool, and that, are calm and can make decisions, not based on, I gotta get in line right away, get in line, So anyway, this guy with, he's got like this big kind of square jaw. He kind of reminds me of like Jay Leno. His name is Puhat, or Puhat actually. But his name is Puhat, so it's like Puhat. So Puhat comes over and explains to them exactly what I was thinking, that, hey, listen, some people are all... Number one, they're going to save a few slots anyway for, like, those special type of players, because you never know when one of those will come along. And number two, you know, it's no big deal to go and get lined up and whatnot, because he deduces that they're only going to wind up maybe taking 20 in this first round or what have you. Doesn't really matter how it works out. I just know that Killua winds up getting up, of course, as the line dies down. He goes through, and Killua comes back there, and Segura obviously remembers him from, you know, when they just met a day or two ago, or it was 4 days ago actually. And he says, you know, okay, show me your Nen. And he says, can I actually show you my Hatsu instead? And he says, that's fine. Show me whatever you think would give me a clearer understanding of your abilities, and hopefully they're stronger than the other day, right? So he goes and he just starts pulling the electricity out, man. And I mean, just aura of electricity emanates out of him, man. Dude just puts Electro to shame, right? And Segura's like, wow, that's this. And he's thinking in his mind, he's like, this is straight up crazy. This kid just learned this shit in 4 days. You know, this is stuff that takes years to master. And it's funny because as Killua walks out and he says, you know, you have to build up a tolerance and an endurance to electricity and everything else. And Killua, we all know his family's a little messed up, right? Electroshock therapy that's something that just comes with the territory, you know what I mean? So you're sitting in the bathtub and all of a sudden your father comes up and drops a hairdryer and it shocks the fuck out of you. It's what I picture those people doing to each other in that cold-ass Zoldyck family mansion, you know? It reminds me of just like this giant sort of empty crypt sort of dungeon castle from the Middle Ages from like Vlad the Impaler or something, you know? Anyways, but it was just a funny nod to Killua and obviously his training, I guess you would call it. He's been exposed to electricity his whole life, you know? And it wasn't a joke about him living near power lines. His family just likes to fucking, you know, electroshock each other and stuff. So, tasers on each other just, you know, just to build up the endurance. Anyway, as he comes out the other end of it, he sees that there's only 6 or 7 that have been chosen. And he knows that they made the right choice. Killua sits down. He hopes Gon's going to be okay, that he's going to pass, you know? And then all of a sudden he hears boom, and Gon comes walking out. It goes back and shows Segura, and there's a fucking hole in the wall. And Segura's like, man, these two kids scare me. Because you got to remember that, you know, they came to them 4 days ago, right, out of nowhere. These two kids, you know, about 12 years old, 12, 13 years old. And, you know, they demonstrate some of their power, but they seem pretty hell-bent on trying to get into this game. And then 4 days later, they come back with a whole different slew of moves and just at a different strength level, you know. So this guy, he's scared, and rightfully so. He should be. These two are freaking sleeping giants, even though they're tiny, even though they're little kids. But nonetheless, so very cool to see that they both passed. They got into the game. They all wind up having to have this contract that they have to sign and return before they can go into the game. So we wind up seeing Gon, Killua, and Leorio in kind of their send-off scene for Leorio. He looks over the contract for them. There's 3 basic stipulation points in there. And the first one is, well, I remember the second one is obviously you can't take any items out of it. The third one is if you actually clear the game, you get 50 billion Jenny. Oh, and the first one was that if anything happens to you, you can't sue for, like, bodily harm or injury or anything like that, or your family can't sue, like, if you go in and die. It's basically like, hey, listen, you're going in, but you know the risks going in. And then, of course, the second one, like I said, is you can't remove any items from it, which kind of bugs Killua, but Gon's like, I don't give a shit. I just want to find out about my dad, right? I don't care about any items, you know? And then the third one is obviously, you know, if you actually can clear it, nobody has in the 10-plus years it's been out, 50 billion Jenny goes to you. No, that's not chump change, you know? That's the real deal. So anyway, there's a nice heartfelt send-off, I think, too, for Leorio. You know, he talks about how he's going to obviously go become a doctor. They'll meet up again. It'll be 4 years before he passes and becomes a doctor. Gon says that we don't plan on taking that long to complete the game, but, you know, so it is. It's kind of nice, and it's a fitting send-off, I think, for that character, at least for the time being. I do hope that we see him again, because I enjoy and I like the character a lot of Leorio, so, as Kurapika as well. But Gon and Killua wind up going on their way. And then really the end of it is kind of cool. The end few minutes or whatever. I didn't know if we'd actually get into the game and get into this and that. But what winds up happening is they go to this, they take a train, they go to this mansion. At this mansion, Segura is there, and there's this secret room they go into that looks like something from NASA or CIA or something. And there's all these TVs and of course, joy stations, or I think that's what they call them, and of course the copies of Greed Island on them. They explain a few quick things to know about this. This is more of like a World of Warcraft type game, like an MMORPG. It's not like you put the game in and you play it by yourself. It's like you go into the game and you're in the same game as everybody else. So how many ever copies of it there are, and I think there's, what, like 20 or something, or 100? There's not many. that's, you know, the players that are in there, but they're all connected. They all see each other and stuff inside the game. So I thought that was kind of cool as well. You know, they explained a little bit about that, and then they basically do paper, rock, scissors as who was going to go first. Gon winds up winning. He's the first one in. Also, you know, he can obviously put on his ring that was left to him by Ging, his father, and the memory card. He chooses to use that save file. However, it's explained as well that you all start at the same point anyway, regardless of your save file. So I don't know what the hell the save file's for. Maybe for items that you have or something like that. Anyway, Gon walks in. It's cool because he goes and he, uses his Nen, and then of course he goes into the game, and he's in this cool Tron-like thing. And if you haven't seen Tron, look up, Google clips of it, whatever, watch it. Looks like that when he goes into it, right? And the Tron, or like the Matrix, I don't know. But he goes in, and there's this girl in there, and she's basically the one that's going to explain the rules of the game to him. She explains that if you have a ring, which obviously he does, that you get 2 spells automatically, and those 2 spells are Book and Gain. Book is when he holds his hand forward and says book, a book appears in his hand, and the book is almost like it's like a trading card game collectible book, right, that you would have for like Pokemon cards or something along those lines. There is numbered slots from 0 to 99, and to complete the game you have to collect all 100 of those items. And of course, each item has a corresponding number, and you have to put them in the book. There's also 45 free slots that I'm assuming if you get a duplicate item or an item that's not numbered, maybe a special power-up, something along those lines, that you can put in there as well. And then the spell Gain that you have is actually a spell that you can use when you collect an item, like a sword, for instance. It automatically turns into a card. You have 1 minute to put the card in the actual book, right? And if you don't, it turns back into an item and can never be changed again. However, if you decide that it's a valuable item or a duplicate item that you want to use it, you can use Gain to turn it back into an item. So very cool stuff that they lay out for us here. And really, like I said, it just kind of lays the groundwork for what I think will be a really cool, really excellent arc. So the end of it, though, Gon goes in, and as he goes to load his save file, she says you have a message from Ging Freeze. And it's his father, this piece of shit, definitely not Father of the Year, goes and says, oh yeah, I'm glad you made it here. If you're expecting to find a clue to my whereabouts, you're shit out of luck. I just wanted you to come check out the game that me and my friends created, you know? So this guy is definitely like absentee parent of the decade, I would say, or maybe even the millennium, you know? And I don't care what his deal is and whatever. He ultimately he chose adventure and excitement over his parental duties, you know? And the fact that there was no mother or anything involved in the picture makes it even worse as far as I'm concerned. It's not like he went off and the mother was still there and he would like, okay, I gotta go do my hunter thing and I'll come back every now and then. And then he goes and he leads this kid on this freaking wild goose chase, and this poor kid and Killua now, who's tagging along with him, are in this game that they can fucking die in, right? But don't expect any clue as to my whereabouts, even though you risked life and limb and everything else to even get into this game and to get to this point. You know, what a jackbag. Anyway, just my 2 cents on the character. You may not agree. Again, opinions will vary based on, you know, just the person, their individual life experiences. I just know that I have kids, and regardless of this being a fictional tale or not, I would never abandon any of them for anything ever. You know, because you can have a good balance between what you want to do and what you have responsibility to and what you should do. You know, there's a big difference between what you want to do and what you should do or what you have to do, you know. And I think that's something that obviously Ging doesn't subscribe to. Or Ging, whatever. But the cool thing is that at the end of it, you know, Gon winds up going and walking down these steps and goes into it, and he's just kind of in this big green open field with this cool looking tower. The new intro and opening and ending too are really good as well. I forgot to mention it in the last review. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. You know, it's the same opening song, but we do get to see a whole mess of new characters. I'm assuming ones that get introduced in this arc, and it's very cool. You know, very, very good stuff. So, and I've really enjoyed every time it's changed since it's started. You know, obviously with the Phantom Troop showing all those members is really cool, and it's neat because you see all them at the beginning of that arc, and then as the arc goes and unfolds, you get to obviously get introduced to those characters and figure out who's who. So, my episode question for you, though, brothers and sisters, is what are your thoughts on Greed Island and the way that it was explained? It's not just this standalone game. Everyone that goes in there is interconnected in kind of a World of Warcraft-like way. I guess that's just the best way I can describe it for something that's modern and relevant now, or at least I think it's still relevant now. I don't play World of Warcraft myself. but have nothing against it, just don't have the time for it. So let me know what your thoughts are, though, on the game of Greed Island, and obviously what's been explained so far about the rules, and of course the book and everything else. So let me know what your answer is in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you hunters in the next Fun Nation.
Remember to subscribe to my other channels as well as the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.